The 70s were this weird moment where paranoia stopped being a character flaw and started being the only sane response to what was happening around you. Audiences wanted easy answers and clear villains, but what they got instead were surveillance experts destroying their own apartments, detectives spinning in circles on broken boats, and films where the conspiracy won and nobody got punished. Most of these made their money back and disappeared, spending decades as VHS shelf filler until people finally realized the dread was the whole point. The conversation drops you into Harry Call's world, a San Francisco surveillance expert who records a young couple walking through Union Square for some corporate client, spending days cleaning the audio until one line keeps surfacing about someone getting killed. Harry lives alone behind multiple locks because he's terrified anyone might discover what he does, haunted by a past job that ended with 3 people dead. When his tapes get stolen, Harry checks into a hotel room and listens through the wall as a violent struggle erupts next door, then breaks in to find what looks like a clean crime scene until he flushes the toilet and blood surges up. Gene Hackman showed up as a reserved method actor who avoided crew to build Harry's isolation naturally, the whole shabby raincoat thing changing how people treated him on set. Wexler quit over creative clashes with Coppola mid-shoot, the cinematographer wanting raw documentary style while Coppola was chasing shadowy paranoid dread, the clash ending with one of Hollywood's best shooters leaving the project over creative vision. The film barely broke even on its $1.6 million budget, grossing $4.4 million, but got overlooked in the blockbuster rush, eventually becoming this defining sound-driven thriller where Harry's breakdown is inseparable from Walter Murch's audio design, the horror coming from what he hears on those tapes, slowly destroying him from the inside. Night Moves puts you alongside Harry Mosby, an ex-football player turned private investigator who trails cheating spouses for a living, hired by a fading actress to find her runaway teenage daughter, Deli. The search takes him through Hollywood backlots down to the Florida Keys, where Deli's living with her mom's ex-husband, some plane wreck in the shallow water hinting at smuggling he can't quite figure out. Bodies start turning up, and the whole case falls apart into this mess, with no clear answers. Harry ending up in a broken boat just spinning in circles going nowhere. Gene Hackman took the role to fight typecasting, channeling real career anxiety into Mosby's blue-collar hustle, as a guy who knows one wrong move ends everything. Melanie Griffith was 17 playing Deli in bikini scenes that framed her as both kid and sex object. The production just accepting that kind of thing as normal for the era without much thought about what it meant. Director Arthur Penn was capturing this story about men failing to solve anything as the world changed around them, the detective genre collapsing under its own outdated assumptions. The film opened the same day as Jaws on June 11, 1975, and never stood a chance against the summer blockbuster phenomenon, but stuck around as this key piece about 70s masculinity quietly cracking apart. Hackman's fear of being forgotten bleeding straight into a detective who can't keep up with the world changing around him. The Parallax View starts with reporter Joe Frady watching a political assassination go down at the Seattle Space Needle, witnesses dropping dead afterward until Frady digs into Parallax Corporation, recruiting killers through fake job interviews. His investigation drags him through motels and exploding trains where every piece of evidence vanishes, culminating in an assassination blast where Frady dies as the patsy in the deadly chaos. Warren Beatty starred as lead producer, working with director Alan Pakula, who stripped away the star treatment and pushed these long paranoid takes, where Beatty had to hold tension without any of his usual charm moves. Gordon Willis shot the thing with these massive wide angles that made Beatty look tiny against huge empty buildings, the conspiracy literally built into how small people looked inside those spaces. The most disturbing part hits during Frady's psychological test at Parallax. This montage flashing wholesome American images mixed with war footage and Nazi stuff that still feels gross and manipulative watching it now. The movie confused audiences on release, and Paramount barely pushed it. But after Watergate hit, it became the middle piece of Pakula's paranoia trilogy. The reputation growing as people realized shadowy corporate assassins weren't fantasy anymore. That ending where the bad guys win completely and the hero dies, becoming the template for every political thriller trying to tell the truth about power. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia throws you into Benny's life. This scruffy piano player in Mexico City, barely getting by on tips, when bounty hunters offer a cut of $1 million for some gangster's head. Benny learns from his girlfriend Alita that Alfredo already died in a crash, so he grabs the head and hits the road through dust and heat, dodging killers the whole way. Everything ends in bloody chaos, with Benny talking to the rotting head like it's his friend, completely broken but still moving forward. Warren Oates lived rough to get into character, growing out his beard and staying in cheap Mexico City places to feel that desperation, working with Isla Vega, who powered through brutal desert shoots. Peckinpah showed up pushing everyone through these intense takes, Oates dealing with gore effects in the heat, while the director demanded more raw emotion. The movie turned a small profit, but hurt Peckinpah's momentum in Hollywood, though Oates became a legend for how far he went. His real struggles with drinking, later making people look back at this performance as him channeling actual demons. The whole production giving the film this authenticity you can't fake, where the corruption on screen felt lived in by everyone making it. The Tenant follows Trelkowski, this quiet Polish guy in Paris, who rents an apartment where the last tenant jumped out the window onto broken glass below. Neighbors stare at him weird, and the landlord keeps yelling about noise, paranoia building as he finds a tooth in the wall and sees figures standing motionless in the bathroom. He starts dressing in the dead woman's clothes, convinced everyone's trying to turn him into her, so he'll jump too. Vision's getting worse until he actually does it twice, with people watching. Roman Polanski cast himself, throwing himself into it right after his wife got murdered, and he had to leave the country, losing weight and sleeping in the actual set apartment, talking to mirrors. Isabelle Adjani bonded with him over heavy rehearsals that pulled up her stage fright, while Shelley Winters played the concierge with her signature intensity, bringing authentic unease to those stairwell encounters. The film bombed, but became this grimy apartment horror masterpiece. Polanski's actual psychological damage from real tragedy feeding into a character literally becoming someone else's nightmare. The whole production feeling like watching someone work through trauma by making it worse on purpose. Don't Look Now drops you into John and Laura Baxter's grief after their daughter Christine drowns, John restoring a Venice church while trying to hold things together. These psychic sisters tell Laura they can see Christine happy in the afterlife wearing her red coat, John thinking it's grief talking while these red hooded figures keep appearing in Venice's alleys. He's chasing leads on some child killer while having visions of Christine in the water, everything building to this chase through sewers where the red coat means something completely different. Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie work through brutal Venice shoots, that famous sex scene becoming one of cinema's most frank portrayals of intimacy, while director Nicholas Roeg pushed the boundaries of what mainstream films could show. Christie showed up pouring her own sadness into Laura's breakdown, the red coat stuff triggering something deep as Roeg kept pushing reshoots and actual floods where she's slipping into freezing water. The seance scene left Christie emotionally drained, the intense improvisational work pulling real emotion from the actors. The whole thing works as this masterpiece of dread and loss, Venice looking beautiful and terrifying at the same time, while past and present collapse into each other. Roeg's willingness to push actors into real discomfort, creating horror that feels uncomfortably intimate. The Stepford Wives brings Joanna Eberhardt to perfect suburban Connecticut, with her husband Walter, looking for a fresh start. Except all the women are these polished housewives obsessed with cleaning and pleasing their husbands with zero personality. She finds two normal friends in Bobby and Charmaine until they transform into the same creepy perfect wives, Joanna realizing she's next as her robot double starts hunting her. Catherine Ross came in excited to play Joanna's paranoid breakdown, but director Brian Forbes demanded this raw authenticity, staging breakdowns in actual mansions with cameras everywhere that made her genuinely uneasy. Ross and Forbes clashed over tone and the nude scene was dropped, tensions building as their visions for the character diverged throughout production. Paula Prentice dealt with her own pressure as the production pushed through the uncomfortable satire about suburban women getting erased by male control. The movie nailed its satire, though the production became complicated by creative disagreements. Forbes' career taking a hit afterward, while the film became a touchstone in feminist film circles for its unflinching look at how women's identities get consumed by patriarchal expectations. Winter Kills opens 19 years after President Tim Keegan got assassinated. His half-brother Nick, getting dragged into conspiracy theories after some dying guy, confesses involvement, Nick heading to his billionaire father Pat Keegan's island fortress, full of secrets and armed guards. He finds forged evidence and intelligence ties everywhere, fancy parties hiding ruthless power moves and explosions on yachts, the whole Keegan empire built on the kind of corruption that makes Watergate look small. Jeff Bridges jumped in at 29, dealing with risky stunts as the budget fell apart, bonding with character actor Jeff Corey between takes, while exhausted crews led to some genuinely dangerous moments that got captured on film. Director William Richard fought producers constantly over the Kennedy satire, production tensions peaking, but everyone finished their roles despite the chaos of harness failures and budget problems. The movie got released butchered against Richard's wishes and bombed, slowly building this cult reputation as the Kennedy assassination movie where the behind-the-scenes chaos somehow made the paranoid conspiracy stuff feel more real, like even making a movie about institutional corruption gets corrupted by the same forces. The Killing of a Chinese Bookie gives you Cosmo Vitelli running his Sunset strip club Crazy Horse West, just paid off his debts but loses $23,000 in one poker night to the mob, who make him sign over the club, then offer a deal to kill a rival bookie. Cosmo goes after the guy dodging guards and attack dogs, finds him getting killed in this spa, then fights his way out with a bullet in him, crawling back to his club, bleeding to death. Ben Gazzara pulled from his real history with gambling to play Cosmo. Those old poker demons surfacing during John Cassavetes' immersive LA night shoots where method and reality kept bleeding together. Seymour Cassel brought this street menace to his mob character, the tension between him and Cassavetes over the character's arc playing out in raw rehearsals. Al Rubin as Mr. Sophistication bonded deep with the dancers during these marathon emotional shoots, pouring real heartbreak into his lounge singer routine as Cassavetes pushed everyone past normal limits. The film died commercially, but became Cassavetes' rawest work, actors channeling actual personal struggles into performances where you can't tell what's acting and what's real life spilling over. Cult audiences finding this showbiz tragedy where the line between playing broken and being broken completely disappeared. Coma follows Dr. Susan Wheeler at Boston Memorial Hospital, figuring out young, healthy patients are slipping into comas after routine surgery, their bodies getting harvested for some secret organ bank at the Jefferson Institute. She films evidence while dodging skeptical colleagues and administrators gassing patients through rigged vents. Everything building to chases through air ducts and rooftop confrontations, exposing how hospital elites profit off black market body parts. Genevieve Bujold came in hot off an Oscar nomination, ready to play Susan's intelligence, but Michael Crichton's precise clinical directing style clashed with her intuitive approach as they filmed in actual Boston area hospitals at night. Bujold pushed through intense takes that demanded she cycle through terror and determination over and over until the role started taking its toll. Michael Douglas, producing and starring, kept sparring with Crichton about Susan's storyline versus his character's importance, rewriting scenes to balance the power dynamic while the budget climbed. Tom Selleck showed up pre-Magnum PI training hard for the physical stuff and dealing with demanding stunt work. The movie worked as a paranoid medical thriller that tapped into real fears about hospitals and body autonomy, those production tensions creating the clinical dread that made audiences question every medical procedure they'd ever trusted.